The struggles of a young disciple. In the heart of a forest, nestled high in the mountains, there was a peaceful Buddhist monastery. Surrounded by towering trees, streams that sang their way down the slopes, and the gentle sound of birds in the distance, it was a place designed for introspection and tranquility. Here, monks from different parts of the land came to practice mindfulness, meditation, and the teachings of the Buddha. Among these monks was a young disciple named Ananda, a diligent and sincere seeker of wisdom. Ananda had joined the monastery after spending much of his early life in the chaos of the city, where he had been a merchant's apprentice. The city, with its relentless pace, the clamor of the market, and the pursuit of wealth and power, had left him feeling lost and disconnected. Though he had accumulated material success, something in his heart felt incomplete. When he discovered the teachings of the Buddha, he decided to leave his former life and embark on a journey of spiritual awakening. He hoped to find peace, wisdom, and meaning in the silence of the forest and the guidance of the monks. Yet, even in this tranquil setting, Ananda found himself constantly battling his own mind. Every morning, he woke up with a sense of agitation. His mind was flooded with thoughts, regrets from the past, worries about the future, and doubts about his path. He could sit in meditation for hours, but his thoughts felt louder than the serene surroundings. His emotions fluctuated wildly between frustration, anger, anxiety, and sadness. Despite the teachings, he felt like he wasn't making any progress. After months of feeling stuck, he finally approached the head monk of the monastery, Master Sumedha, a revered and wise figure who had been guiding monks for decades. His face always seemed calm, like a lake on a windless day, and his presence alone could bring comfort to those around him. Ananda bowed before Master Sumedha and said, "Master, I've been here for many months now, but I feel as though I am not growing. Every morning, I wake up with the same troubling thoughts and emotions. I feel overwhelmed by the weight of my mind, and I cannot seem to find peace. Please help me understand why I feel this way, despite practicing diligently." The master looked at Ananda with kind eyes, understanding the turmoil that the young disciple was experiencing. He nodded thoughtfully before speaking. "Ananda," Master Sumedha began in a gentle tone, "the mind is like a wild horse. It takes time and patience to tame it. But more than anything, it takes a consistent practice, a habit that roots you in awareness. It's not about the amount of time you spend in meditation, but how you begin your day. The way you start the morning sets the tone for your entire day." Ananda listened intently, though he still wasn't entirely sure what Master Sumedha meant. Seeing the uncertainty on Ananda's face, the master smiled and continued, "Tomorrow, before the sun rises, come to my chambers. I will show you a simple practice that can change everything." Chapter 2. The Pebbles of Mindfulness. The next morning, before the first light of dawn broke through the mountains, Ananda made his way to the chambers of Master Sumedha. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth. The monastery was still, with the only sounds being the faint chirping of early morning birds. When Ananda arrived, the master was sitting quietly, a small pouch beside him on the floor. He gestured for Ananda to sit across from him. Without a word, Master Sumedha handed Ananda the pouch, which was filled with small, smooth pebbles. Ananda looked at the pebbles, puzzled, but waited for the master's explanation. "Ananda," the master said, "each morning when you wake, your mind is already filled with thoughts, many of which are negative or anxious. This is the natural state of the untamed mind. But with a simple practice, you can begin to gain control over these thoughts." The master picked up a pebble from the pouch and placed it in front of him. "For every negative or troubling thought that comes into your mind, take a pebble from the pouch and place it on the ground. Do this mindfully, acknowledging the thought, but without judgment. Simply observe it." Ananda watched as the master placed another pebble down. "After you've placed all the pebbles that represent your negative thoughts, sit with them for a moment. Recognize that these thoughts are not you, they are simply passing clouds in the sky of your mind. Once you have observed them, take each pebble, one by one, and place it back in the pouch. But as you do, replace the negative thought with a neutral or positive one." Ananda nodded slowly, beginning to grasp the simplicity of the practice. "And then, Master, what happens?" Master Sumedha smiled. "Then you begin your day with a mind that is clear, aware, and in control. The habit of starting your morning with mindfulness, acknowledging your thoughts without getting swept away by them, will change the way you live each day." Chapter 3. The Practice Begins. Ananda took the pouch of pebbles back to his quarters, eager to begin the practice the following morning. That night, as he lay in bed, he couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Perhaps this simple habit would finally bring him the peace he had been searching for. The next morning, as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Ananda woke up and immediately reached for the pouch of pebbles. He sat cross-legged on the floor, closed his eyes, and began to observe his thoughts. As expected, they came rushing in, thoughts of past mistakes, fears about his future, doubts about his ability to follow the path of the Buddha. For each troubling thought, he placed a pebble on the ground. It wasn't long before there were several pebbles before him. At first, the sight of so many pebbles was disheartening. He hadn't realized just how full of negativity his mind had become. But he remembered the Master's words, "Observe without judgment." Taking a deep breath, Ananda simply watched his thoughts without getting entangled in them. He reminded himself that these thoughts were not permanent, nor did they define him. After a few minutes of sitting with the pebbles, he began to pick them up, one by one. With each pebble he returned to the pouch, he replaced the negative thought with something neutral or positive. Instead of thinking about his past mistakes, he reminded himself of the lessons he had learned from them. Instead of worrying about the future, he focused on the present moment, feeling the cool morning air and hearing the soft sounds of nature. By the time he had returned the last pebble to the pouch, Ananda felt a subtle shift within him. His mind was clearer, and his heart felt lighter. The practice had only taken a few minutes, but it set the tone for the rest of his day. He moved through his daily tasks with more focus and calm, noticing that when negative thoughts arose, he was better equipped to acknowledge them without getting carried away by them. The simple act of observing his mind each morning gave him the awareness to respond to his thoughts and emotions with more wisdom and compassion. Chapter 4. The Ripple Effect. Days turned into weeks, and Ananda continued his morning practice with the pebbles. Every morning, without fail, he would sit in silence, observe his thoughts, place the pebbles down, and then mindfully return them to the pouch. Over time, he noticed a profound change in his mental state. The number of pebbles he placed on the ground each morning gradually decreased. Where once his mind had been a storm of negative thoughts and emotions, now there was a growing sense of peace and clarity. He became more mindful of his thoughts throughout the day, not just in the morning. This simple habit of observing and transforming his thoughts in the morning rippled out into every aspect of his life. He found that he was more present during meditation, more compassionate in his interactions with others, and more resilient in the face of challenges. Other monks in the monastery began to notice the change in Ananda as well. He carried himself with a newfound sense of calm and centeredness. When they asked him what had brought about this transformation, he shared the practice that Master Sumedha had taught him. Soon, many of the monks adopted the same morning ritual, and the monastery became a place where the power of mindful awareness blossomed in every corner. Chapter 5. The Wisdom of the Pebbles. One day, several months after Ananda had begun his practice, he returned to Master Sumedha's chambers to express his gratitude. Bowing deeply, he said, "Master, I cannot thank you enough for the wisdom you shared with me. This simple habit has changed my life in ways I could never have imagined. My mind is clearer, my heart is lighter, and I feel more connected to the present moment." Master Sumedha smiled warmly. "The wisdom was always within you, Ananda. The practice merely helped you uncover it. Remember, the mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant and nurture will grow. By starting your day with mindfulness and awareness, you have cultivated a garden of peace within your mind." Ananda reflected on the Master's words and realized that the practice